Okay, so after taking off about a week over Hanukkah, we want to return now to understanding the concept of Tzimtzum. And he explains, based on what the Biyam Darkecha explains, based on what the Arizal writes, that in the process of Tzimtzum, in which Hashem hid his light, that was only in the center point. We've discussed beforehand that the center point is an indication, not a spatial place, but it means that the Tzimtzum took place where, so to speak, the action was going to happen subsequently. But outside of this, so to speak, central point, God's revelation remained as it was. And the metaphorical way in which this is described is that Hashem moved his powerful light to the sides in such a manner that the sides were full of light and the center appeared devoid of light. And he asked that, what do we mean that the light that was in the center was moved to the sides? The entirety of existence, such as it was before Tzimtzum, was full of the infinite light. And there's no way to take light and move it to a place in which the light that's found there is infinite. So how are we supposed to understand this concept? And he says, to understand this again, keep in mind that we are not discussing over here space. We're talking about center and sides. This has nothing to do with space, but rather it is using this metaphor to explain to us that post-Tzimtzum, even those who are found in the place where Tzimtzum took place, i.e., in the place that appears to be devoid of Hashem's presence, but they have the ability to comprehend that outside of this space, God's infinite light remains as powerful as ever. And therefore, it is not completely hidden from them, because they can understand that it exists and it is still present, just not present in a way that they can understand it within the dimension of Tzimtzum. So that's what he means when he says the light was pushed to the sides. It's all around them. And therefore, someone who makes the effort has the ability to discover that light. It is only within the place of Tzimtzum that is hidden. But if you look beyond there, if you look beyond the simple view that you have of existence, you will see that everything else is the light of the infinite. And then in a footnote, he takes this one step further. The footnote is entitled Darchei Avoda. And again, as we've seen these footnotes before, these are, so to speak, the practical applications of these concepts. And he explains that when we feel a heaviness and a difficulty when it comes to serving Hashem, if we feel a darkness, if we feel a depression and a distance, all of that is a manifestation of Tzimtzum. Anything that stuffs up your heart and prevents you from experiencing God, and instead all you experience is nature and physical desires, that's all Tzimtzum. Because they darken our ability to serve Hashem. And the Tzimtzum creates a state in which we do not experience spirituality, which we don't feel God. And we can't feel God emotionally or intellectually, but everything is dark and hidden. And on the contrary, the matters of the physical world appear to us in that state to be most real. In these times, what are we meant to do? We have to crawl inside that darkness. As Hashem says about Paro, Ani hichbadati, I made it difficult. Because the real avoda, the service that's incumbent upon us in response to Tzimtzum, is to reveal that God is found there, is to remember that everything is godliness, and that any darkness that we perceive is merely something that is covering up God's manifest presence. But really, everything is God. And in every situation, God is there with us because he fills and surrounds all of the worlds. And really, the darkness itself is godliness. It's godliness being revealed as darkness. And our task when we're there is to recognize Hashem and how Hashem conducts things even during hiddenness and darkness. To recognize that everything, whether we experience it as good or we experience otherwise, everything is godliness and ultimately will lead to good. And we will continue discussing this concept in our next year. Thank you for listening.